Thank you everyone for being here. So what EduMais does, oh, where are we going? Here we're going. Turning learning into results. EduMais is based in Rio de Janeiro, and we focus on the development of social, emotional, and academic skills of our youth living in the slums of Rio de Janeiro. And before we start, this is my agenda. Let's meet. I really would love to know from you who has been to Brazil, who has been to Rio de Janeiro, and I'm going to explain and share with you why EduMais, how do we do it, what we do, and what our results are, and how people can volunteer, and if you have any questions. So, sejam bem-vindos, as we say it in Portuguese. My question is, who has been to Brazil? And I know, Brandon, can you help me if you see any notes, any messages? Because I do struggle here with this.
That's okay. I don't see any messages from anyone. I think it's possible none of us have been to Brazil, but we would love to learn more. Crystal says, okay. I have not, but I am very inspired by what is going on there in education. So that's awesome.
Okay, awesome. So let me share a little bit about favelas are in general called like slums, but I call them informal settlements. I find that a better translation for favela than a slum. And the favelas do exist since 130 years. And it started actually as an informal settlement. It was due to a certain war in the past, and the soldiers were promised a certain reward, and they were not rewarded. And then they occupied a mountain, and that's a hill in the city, and they were never removed. So that was actually the start, how it all started, how those informal settlements started, and especially in Rio de Janeiro. Sorry. We have on one side, we have the mountains, and the other side, we have the beach. And around Brazil, there are many favelas, but what makes it very special in Rio de Janeiro is that in every area where you walk, the rich neighborhoods are surrounded by the informal settlements. Since nobody has been here, children living in those informal settlements very often don't have their own bedroom. They very often share the bed with the parents. They don't have a space to study, and they have very limited access to good quality education. And that's where EduMais steps in. EduMais is an NGO, a volunteer NGO actually, that works in the informal settlements in Rio de Janeiro, and we are based between Ipanema, Copacabana, and that are the richest neighborhoods in Brazil. So, and maybe you can see it here, there's like this red circle, and you see a green spot on a lot of maps for tourists. The favelas are actually colored green, like it is a green area where you could go. The people in the informal settlements are very neglected first by the government, and secondly by the people living not in the favelas. And that has a big impact on their self-esteem and how they perceive themselves. So what does EduMais do? What do? We offer opportunities to develop the social emotional skills as well as academic education for children and young people to have and to create a brighter future away from poverty, violence, and drugs. I think most of you know that favelas are violent, and that's just a fact. But next to the fact that there is violence between the drugs traffickers and the police, there's a lot of poverty, and for people living in those communities, education is good quality education is very limited, accessible. very short, and let me not spend so much time on me. I come from the Netherlands. I entered Brazil in 2010. In 2012, we moved to Rio de Janeiro, and I started teaching English in the favelas. I had a professional background in human resource management. I did training courses for people working in a professional environment. But when I moved to Brazil, I wanted to get involved in the social development of those communities. I started teaching, and in 2014, when I entered the favela where we are based, I had an overwhelming feeling like, okay, and in Portuguese we say, "Isso é minha terra." This is my home. I fell in love with the talent of the kids, and I was absolutely hit hard by the fact that this favela, especially this favela, is between those very rich neighborhoods and how they are not included in society. I started volunteering in this community, and I was working for another NGO, but I hadn't decided to do more for those children. And then in 2016, I established EduMais. And EduMais literally means more education. I have a background in business administration, human resource development, and I am a positive discipline educator. Our story, the seed was planted in 2014. When I entered this in 2016, EduMais was established. We started with 80 students, and we had 4 volunteers. I had 4 professional teachers, 2 from the US and 2 from the UK. And now in 2022, we have weekly 350 students. The majority of them are girls. We include boys too, and we work with about 20 to 25 volunteers from around the world. And that's how we provide education to our students. What do we do? Well, let me start with why we do what we do. First of all, we believe that where you start in life should not dictate where you end up. And we believe in inclusive, equitable, and quality 21st century education. And since this is not available for our students, that's why we offer it. And we do that by international volunteers. So we bring the world that's not accessible for our students. We bring it in by ourselves, by our volunteers. They bring the world, they bring a different behavior, they bring different knowledge. And that's what we bring to our students. And the reason is that, there's a lot of talent in the community we serve, and they are at risk of falling down the cracks. And youth we work with tend to be at risk of wasting their talents due to the environment, because the environment is very conflicted. They're exposed to big weapons, they're exposed to a lot of violence, they're exposed to a lot of insecurity. And that's why we strongly believe that education can change their world. We don't only educate children, we educate as well the family, we educate the community. And I think one of the most rewarding things, what I can see now since we exist, is that we have now 10 people from 10 students from our program volunteering with EduMais. But our mission is to provide free access to complementary quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for the most needy young people in the slums of Rio de Janeiro. The EduMais programs are based on right education and education for all. Dr. Evans already said it, it's a birthright, especially for girls living in the communities where they live. Their identity is very much connected with having children on a very early age. And we try to give them a different view on their identity, and especially when we work with volunteers from around the world, I just see that my internet connection is unstable, so I hope this still goes well. But what we see is that their identity is connected to having, on a very early age, children. And we try as well with bringing in young volunteers, very well educated young volunteers who come here to study, to bring a different view on their own future. And we see that working with international volunteers, that this is as well impacting our students that they believe they can study. It is helping them to connect with different people from around the world. And how do we do it? Working with children who were traumatized, by the way, due to the fact that they live in a conflicted area and there's no safety because the conflict can occur every single moment. They are traumatized. It's affecting their brain and the flexibility of the brain, and they come in with disruptive behavior. So we use positive discipline as a base to develop social, emotional, and 21st century skills. Positive discipline helps us to create horizontal relationships with the students and the teachers, and it's a foundation for mutual respect and dignity. And it's a key for an empowering environment for our students, and especially for our girls, because it's not only the fact that they live in a conflicted area, but as well, Brazil is a very masculine culture, where the reason as well why girls have so early babies is because the boys ask, show me you love me, and you do that for the girls, you do that by having a baby, and then the man disappears. So having this empowering environment, that study and that education really helps, is very important for our girls. Due to the fact that our students are traumatized, we have a special way to teach our students. We do high-speed teaching with a huge variation to practice and to tap into the flexibility of the brain. We use the growth mindset of Carol Dweck, and we have TPR, which is a total physical response-based activity. So we include a lot of body movement so they can remember better and learn better. Well, what do? We have an emerging English conversational programs, and we start at the age of 7 years old till the age of 18, more or less. We offer for the last year, and high school students, we offer entrepreneurship, enter the labor market. We have serious game design as we feel that's the future for our students. We have trained a teacher program. We do English summer camps. We have an exchange program with a partner organization in the United States. And we create work opportunities, and we are volunteer-based and donor-based organization. We do not get funding from the government. What are our results so far? So we established ourselves in 2016. We have 1,450 students served. We have 70 graduated students. We have 50 students studying at university. Since 2019, we have 6 students in an exchange program. Since 2016, we have more than 150 volunteers from around the world. Since 2016, 3 students employed since 2019. 10 students became volunteers, and our students have more confidence, more self-esteem. They have English skills. My comes from the community, do job training, and well, you know, how can people volunteer? They can come over to Rio de Janeiro, of course, and to start teaching with us, which is, I think, the most rewarding thing to do. We as well look always for volunteers online, so that the students who want to learn more English, that they can have a tutor English class online. We are looking for empowering girls programs, especially for that, and people when they cannot come to join us physically. We're always looking for people for social media support, website update, media exposure, writing grants, and of course, we're always looking for donations. Wow, sorry you guys, I was rushing through my presentation. I'm very curious what kind of questions you have for me, and I hope this gives you an idea about what we do for the children in the favelas in Rio de Janeiro.